The time of rest is just as much for you and your body as it is for your mind, but as it also is for your ministry and your craft. Hey, welcome everybody to the 17th episode of Ascension to Depth. I hope that this episode finds you well wherever it is that you're tuning in, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Tuvos Radio, Nokia flip phone, whatever it might be. I hope that this episode is an encouragement to you. I hope that you learned something from this show, and thank you for taking the time to tune in. Before we get started, I do have to make two announcements before we get into the topic of today. First, for those of you who listen on Tuvos Radio, I am very sorry that I missed last week. Apparently, I uploaded it wrong, I guess, and so the broadcast didn't go out. And so for those of you who wait for Tuvos Radio, Facebook, YouTube, or just on the radio station itself, and you missed my program, I'm so sorry, and I will do better on making sure that that gets out to you guys. It's still new. I'm still working out how to do it, and so bear with me. And if you did miss it, it is on YouTube, and if you want to listen to it, you can find it there on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Those all uploaded fine. Second announcement I want to make is I want to assure all of you guys that I am not quitting anytime soon. My mom called me before I uploaded this show, before I uploaded last episode, and she told me, it sounds like you're getting the audience ready for you to quit. And I told her, no, I'm not. If it came across that way, that's not what I meant. And I just wanted to assure you guys, I truly enjoy making this show. I truly enjoy spending time and hopefully giving you guys something to learn, something to chew on as you go about your week on the things of God, that it's not just another podcast you listen to. This is something that can hopefully benefit you spiritually and help you in your walk with God. And so I'm not quitting anytime soon. All I was trying to do is point out that I have no idea how we even got to 57 subscribers. For most people, that's cheap change. For most people, they don't even bat an eye at 57, but that is amazing to me. That's 57 people that, at least get to hear one more thing about God. And so if you haven't already subscribed to the channel on wherever it is that you're listening, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Tuvos Radio, whatever it might be, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do to expand this audience and share it with people, because you're not the only person that needs to hear it. More than likely, you know somebody who can benefit from the things that we talk about on this show, just like they would benefit from going to a Sunday service with you guys. Sometimes a show like this, not just this show, but a show like this can be what gets somebody to come to that church service with you, because it's just a little more informal. It's just a little bit more knowledge. It's just a little bit more encouragement to be a better person, to be a better Christian, to be a better scholar, to be a better whatever it might be. But hopefully you can use this as a tool to reach the community that you're in, just like I'm hoping that it's reaching the community that I'm in. And so I'm not quitting anytime soon. Just wanted to appreciate you guys for being subscribers, being followers. And so thank you so much. And speaking of last week, like I did before I went on that long tangent, if you missed it, we talked about patience. We talked about the patience required to be on this journey, the patience required to run this race that the Bible talks about, and how we need to develop that patience. It's not just something that you pick up. It's something that's grown in you. It's a fruit of the Spirit. But I'm not going to get all into it. If you missed it, go back, listen to it, and I hope that you are benefited by it. I hope that you learned something by it, and I just hope that you grow in general. I hope that you grow from this show. This week, I want to talk about something that I forget to do all the time. I want to bring it up because if you find yourself in a place where you're like, I think I have a lot in common with Joe, you might struggle with this too. And if you do, I hope to encourage you today. I hope to give you another set of perspectives on this topic. And this week I want to talk about the idea of rest. I'm one of those people who will push past being tired, push past not feeling well, push past the fact that there isn't anything to really push past. I make problems harder than they need to be. I make situations greater than they need to be because I need an obstacle to overcome. I need a battle to fight. And I mask that. I mask that flaw in myself by calling myself ambitious or just too determined, when at times I'm really just being stubborn. And admitting this doesn't mean you're not ambitious. I've had to learn that over and over again. Admitting that you are stubborn does not mean that you are not another thing. You can be stubborn and ambitious. You can be stubborn and determined. But it's those moments that you're like, okay, I need to calm down, that you find yourself like, oh no, something's going wrong, or oh no, I'm not doing enough, or I could be getting so much done. Being in that restful moment too long makes you uncomfortable. And what I've had to teach myself over and over is how to rest, how to be calm and actually be in the moment that I'm in. And what's helped me along in this learning process of how to rest is a verse that most people probably read over all the time just because it's in the middle of a lot of good stuff, and it's amidst the commandments that God is giving through Moses to the Israelites. And it struck me as a bit oddly placed, but it really spoke to me when I read it. And the verse is Exodus 34:21. Again, this is in the midst of God giving the Israelites commandments. Verse 21 says, 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. Earing time is the time where you would plow. It's the time where you would sow the seed. And harvesting time is obviously where you would harvest or take up the crop you planted and benefit from the fruit thereof. Whether you were going to sell it or whether you were going to eat it, this was the time where you brought it back. And so you got to reap the benefit of what you sown. But in the midst of giving the Israelites these commandments, in the midst of telling them what you need to do, what you don't need to do, what you shouldn't do and what you should do, in the midst of it all, instead of leaving it up to chance for the people to rest when they're tired, which God could have very easily done, he instead says, take the seventh day and take that day to rest. No matter what part of the year you're in, 6 days, you're going to work. You need to work more than you rest. But that seventh day, pack it up, go get some rest. Now, while most of us don't find ourselves planting or harvesting crops, more than likely you are in one of those two places in life. You're making decisions, you're sowing, or you're living out the consequences, good or bad. You're reaping. One of the two. You're either making the harvest or reaping the harvest. And so ask yourself, in the midst of all that, in the midst of your grind, in the midst of your day to day, in the midst of your week, I guess I should say, are you resting enough to even recognize what season you're in? Oftentimes, especially at this point in the timeline between the beginning of time and Jesus coming back, we find ourselves not taking the time to reflect, not taking the time to rest, not taking the time to enjoy what we reap, and not even taking the time to reflect on the harvest that we've sown. Now, a lot of the problem we run into is the perception of rest. And very easily we confuse the rest period when inactivity, which that's not always true, because rest can contain moments of stillness, but it can be just as active as any other piece of the process. Rest can be a time where you reflect on the choices you've made, you're sowing, and observe the type of seed that you've laid down, and observe the fact that you even laid down seed to begin with. Like, my choices have been a seed for something. The things I've said have been a seed for something. The things I've done have been a seed for something. And you can also use this time to predict or even sometimes expect what kind of harvest you're going to get. Look over your accomplishments and regrets in the season that you're in, or look over what you've gleaned from that harvest. If you're in that reaping period, you can look over what you've gained, the things that are good, the things that are bad. What have you taken in to your life? What are you going to do? What are you not going to do next season? Next harvesting, what are you going to avoid? What are you going to take part in? All this can be done in a time of rest. But one of the worst places to reflect is in the middle of the next thing. in the middle of doing something. You often miss details. You miss things that you could have easily caught because you tried to reflect in a period of sowing, or you tried to rest in a period of reaping, or you tried to reap or sow in a period of resting. When you should have been resting, you kept trying to do something else. When we tie ourselves down to action itself, not moving becomes a failure. When not moving can be an action. It can be a deliberate action that we take to benefit us. Another thing that the rest period can be used for is to gather strength to do the next thing. Both planting and harvesting require work, and you need strength to do either. What good is harvesting if you can't plant more, if you can't sow more? And what good is planting if you can't reap? If you don't have the energy required for both seasons, one of them is going to suffer. You are only able to do what you're able to do. If you are constantly on the move, working on something, working on the next thing, something is going to eventually give. Either the thing that you're working on is going to give, or you are going to give. The thing you're working on can suffer, or you can suffer. Now, I've been on both sides of this equation. I've pushed myself past the point where I should have pushed myself. I've woken up before the sun woke up, and I've gone to bed only when I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. And then I would wake up the next day with less and less sleep each following day, and just burning myself out day after day after day after day, pushing it to the max day after day after day. And where it ended me up was in a bed, sick, not able to move, not able to do anything because I couldn't take the time to rest. And I've also tried to work something past its limit, past its point where it can even thrive, where it can even do the thing that I want it to do. I've worked it and worked it and worked it until it gave out. And I'm sitting there like, well, I want you to work, but there was supposed to be a time where it rested. There was supposed to be a time where I could reflect and adjust and change some things so that this thing that I'm working on could thrive. But instead, I chose to keep working and keep pushing and keep striving, which are not bad things, but I did it so much to the point where the thing I was working on couldn't handle it. And what I've realized is that the time of reflection, the time of rest is just as much for you and your body as it is for your mind, but as it also is for your ministry and your craft. I remember about 2 years ago, I was with my mom at a conference in North Carolina, and we had a connecting flight on the way back. The first flight got delayed, and so we were going to miss the connection flight. Now, normally that's not an issue. Normally it's like, okay, that's cool. I'll just catch the next flight to Florida and everything will be fine. But it was on a Saturday night, and I was scheduled to play that Sunday. So instead of just telling my pastor, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, I am on a delayed flight, and I'm just not going to be able to make it to service. And I'm certain that my understanding pastor would have understood. He would have looked at me and just said, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of it. You do what you got to do to get back home. Instead, I decided that I am going to drive 10 hours back to Florida from North Carolina, drive through the night, and get back in time for church. And that's exactly what I did. I got in the car, I rented the car, I got in the car, I drove through the night, eventually made it back to my house with about 30 minutes to spare before practice. I changed into some church clothes, I got to the church, and I played the service, and I just gave it everything I had. Was it the best service I played? Probably not, but I did what I had to do, and I felt accomplished in that. However, I still had to go to work the next day. And my work suffered because I didn't take the time to rest when I should have rested. Because there was also a church picnic that Sunday. Now that I remember, there was a church picnic that Sunday. And instead of going home and resting, I was like, no, I'm going to be a part of the church's ministry. I'm going to be a part of the church's outreach and hanging out with the church body so that I can, grow with them and have good times with them and good laughs and memories with them. Instead of just going home and resting the body that I needed to rest. My work suffered in the end. I couldn't keep my eyes open at my desk. I was sitting at my desk falling asleep, every other minute. And I had one of my worst days in car sales I've ever had. And I say that to say this: rest in your life isn't just a luxury of time left over. It is a necessity for your body, your mind, and I genuinely believe that it's for your spirit as well. You connect with God better when you rest. Even God rested. And I'm going to read Genesis 2, verses 2 through 3 in a second, because a lot of people use this verse to say that, well, even God rested, so you should too. And it's true. You're not better than God. So stop trying to outwork God. But let's read these verses. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 through 3. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. If we dive a little deeper into this verse, God blesses the seventh day, not because it was his most productive, not because he did the best work on that day, not because he created man on that day. He blessed it because he rested. That tells me that there is a blessing to be had in resting. There's another dimension of blessing in creation, but it's not in the fruition. It's in the stillness. It's not in the coming up of something. It's not in the making of something, but it's in the rest of something. I can't tell you how many times God has blessed me in the stillness. When I've just taken time to stop and reflect. It's like getting another wave of God's goodness, especially when I find myself in that reaping season. Man, it's like a double portion of a blessing, because I get to reap what I've sown, but I also get to reap the benefits of rest. And I get to observe God's goodness in action because I've taken the time to rest. And God knows how to open your eyes when you're in the stillness. And why does he do that there? It racked my brain for the longest time. Why do it in the rest? Because that's where you actually have the time to look. I challenge you for all you go-getters and ambitious people out there, for all of you who are determined to make your life what you want it to be. I'm not saying stop that. I'm not saying don't be ambitious, but I challenge you to rest. Let yourself heal from any stress or strain and allow yourself to reflect on what's happened. Then you can decide what you're going to do next. Lean on the Lord. Take comfort in him. Let him show you what goodness is. Let him show you the benefits of your harvest. Let him show you the benefits of your work. Let him show you where to work and where to plant a harvest. Sometimes we do more than we need to do in places we don't need to do it because we didn't take the time to rest and listen to what God would tell us to do. And so let him guide you forward, and don't sacrifice yourself for your ambition. It doesn't mean to put down your ambition. That doesn't mean you have to give up on your pursuit. But it does mean you need to take time to understand where you are and where you're going. Rest and be sure that your dreams, the things that you want to do, can become reality. Clarity is found in rest. Comfort is found in rest. Let the rest do the rest. Let the rest do what it was intended to do. It's okay to. Your tasks are going to be there tomorrow. Your goals are going to be there tomorrow. Your craft will be there tomorrow. And if you're going to do the things that you want to do tomorrow, all the goals that you want to happen, even in this moment, you need to attack them with everything you have and not with everything that you have left over because you decided not to rest. Rest. Take time to rest. I spent so much more energy than I needed to spend on so many different things when I could have just taken the time to understand where God was trying to take me. So rest. I encourage you so much to rest in the Lord. Understand what he's trying to do in you, through you, around you. And then you can even recognize the things you're doing wrong, the things that you shouldn't be harvesting in, the things that you shouldn't be sowing in, and you can adjust. And then when you reap, you're not reaping the things that you shouldn't have. You're reaping the things that God intended for you. And you got that clarity because you decided to rest. And so with that being said, I hope that this episode has benefited you. I hope that the camera angle didn't throw you off too much. And I hope that you have learned something. And I hope that you're encouraged to rest and to just take time. Take time with God. Take time to just sit with God. So many people want to be on the move with God and walk with God and run with God. And, just sit. Just sit and be with God. Sit and understand more about who God is and what he intends for you. Just rest in his presence. Bask in that presence for a little bit. Rest. And then get up and walk. And then go run after whatever you're going to run after. And then pursue him with everything that you got and run. But remember, there's going to be a season for rest. Take that season. And so, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the show, whatever platform you're watching on. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you and Godspeed.